Our epistle again this week is from 1 Corinthians, this time in chapter 8. And here Paul is talking about food sacrificed to idols and eating that food. So maybe you read this with your family and you thought, I don't have to worry about that. I don't eat any food sacrificed to idols. And hopefully that's true. But here, Paul has got a deeper meaning in mind that it can apply to us as well. You see, in the time of the Corinthians, when Paul was writing this, the Christians were used to eating these different foods that were associated with different pagan practices. And when they did it before they were Christian, they did it as an act of worship to the particular god. That food was associated with worship to that god. Now that they're Christian, there's no problem. They don't believe in those gods anymore, and they're still eating this food. But Paul says, well, just be aware now, because some people might still associate eating that food with this practice of worshiping other gods. And so you have to be careful. You can't just do whatever you want. You always have to have your actions serving your neighbor, actions thinking about the needs of your neighbor. So just because you might be comfortable eating something that used to be associated to idols, your neighbor might not be comfortable with that. They may be maybe weaker in faith, is what Paul says, or more sensitive in faith in terms of what's going on here. So what does that mean for us? That reminds me of the saying that actions speak louder than words. And so that's our takeaway from this passage, that actions speak louder than words, that our actions matter, and that our actions have meaning to them. So we always want to be thinking and acting together in a way that serves our neighbor best. And especially if someone is uncomfortable with something, we want to make sure that we avoid it in love for our neighbor, that our actions would also demonstrate love for our neighbor. And I encourage you to think about ways that this occurs in your life and to see if there's ways that your actions can continue to serve your neighbor, can serve your siblings. Certainly there's times where you engage in actions that might confuse or treat your siblings badly, and with your parents as well, with your friends. So we always want to be acting in a way that is serving our neighbor, and that's what Paul is commending us to here.